early on, you really beat yourself up over the failure. As you kind of learn from it, you start kind of not letting it get to you. So you understand why you fail. So one of the things I've done really well is reflect on different conversations, different failure points. So I remember years ago, I'd have to go into contract negotiations with some guys who were pretty damn tenured. Like these guys would be at the edge of their field in terms of capabilities, and you'd leave a meeting going, he got what he wanted there. But then you'd kind of analyze how they did it and how the setup. And so I think being able to reflect is hugely important, because you can make mistakes and not understand the mistake you made because you actually never reflected on what the mistake actually was or how you got to that point. Different people will take failure differently. It needs to be taken with reflection. So you fail, don't beat yourself up about it, but you sure have to go back and understand what caused the failure. If you make the same mistake again, well, then you're an idiot because you're not learning from it.
Oltian Dervishi, very welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Let's start with the business. So, Forte Pespa, what is it? What do you do? Who the customers are, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, of course. So we're a leading offsite manufacturer. We are the largest aluminium balcony manufacturer in the country. We started in 2016. So we started as I'm going to say an atypical contractor. We would take materials, components, all that type of stuff. We design it, we bring it to site, and we would install it on site. We did that for maybe about 5 or 6 years, and what kind of happened during that time was a lot of thinking about a process that was broken, and how we could change that. So what ultimately drove it was a ceiling. So we'd hit a 3 million turnover ceiling, and we couldn't go past that ceiling. And the reason we couldn't go past that ceiling was every single thing was dependent on things that we couldn't necessarily control. So specialist labor, welders, fabricators, installers, which were really short supply. And then other things such as site coordination, access, everybody kind of fighting for the same services on site. So we had a bit of a reset moment about 4 years ago. We basically pulled ourselves back from tendering. And we looked at the process, we looked at our own strengths, our own weaknesses, and we said, okay, well, taking all that into account, we think we can design something much better. So what we essentially did was took all of that know-how, went back to the drawing board, designed a whole new method of manufacturing prefabricated balconies, all in aluminium. And what that essentially allowed us to do over the next 4 years is go from 3 million to 20 million in terms of turnover. The company has excelled quite fast in a couple of years, and we're now probably into our 4th phase of growth. But ultimately, just to give you kind of a scale difference, we would have done a job, about €2 million job for Ballymore and Dublin Landings maybe in 2018. We had 15 guys on the job for about 18 months. That same project now would probably take us about a month. So that's kind of the scale difference between on-site and off-site and the efficiencies that are gained.
And Oltian, talk to me a little bit just about balconies in general, right? Like I have no idea about any of this stuff. Okay, so just bear with me.
Yeah.
At the moment, I suppose the model is roughly as you've kind of explained there. You build a balcony off-site and then you bring it on-site essentially to be installed. Do you install the balcony?
We install the balconies. Yeah.
Okay, and they're mainly on apartment buildings, is that right?
Exactly. Yeah. So they're
Okay.
all usually kind of high density apartment developments.
Okay, and aluminium, what's the kind of connection there? Why aluminium versus any other type of material?
So we started off as an aluminium company. What we have seen is that the industry is quite plagued by tunnel vision. We look at steel fabricators, for example. They would have certain types of machinery, welders. They would have certain processes in place, and there'd be quite a large capital expense to that. And for them to kind of see outside of other materials or other processes is typically governed by the assets that they have invested in, i.e. any step outside of that, it's quite consequential. So the reason for aluminium is it's standardized, it's stockable, Its longevity is second to none. It'll outlive me and you. The paint finish is unbelievable. There's no welding requirement in the entire system. It's very fast to manufacture it, and it's incredibly light. So when we say it's incredibly light, if we look at the building across the road there and say there's 50 balconies hanging off that facade, a steel balcony compared to our balcony would be about 1.1 ton versus about 350 kilos. So all of those balconies and all of their additional weight then impacts the concrete. So now you can reduce the concrete. So there's a lot more of an impact by having a lighter weight balcony than having a heavier weight balcony on the overall development.
Did you know this before you started the business? Like, how did you start the business? How did it kind of come about?
Yeah, so one kind of thing that came out of the EY, the Entrepreneur Year trip, was no one had a linear path into what they were doing currently. I mean, there was examples of some people going to South America and setting up, telephone companies, and then suddenly coming to Ireland and having AI companies. It was just mad journeys throughout. Mine was the exact same. So I was in tech at the age of 22, 23, business development to be precise, and we just spotted an opportunity. So it was, I would think I must have been 24 years of age. We had an opportunity kind of come across our desk, and then we did a bit of research, and we found a gap, and then we said, right, okay, we're going for this. So yeah, I think it was a bit of the risk-taking mentality. And
When you say it came across your desk, can we just flesh this out a little bit, right? You know,
You
because
wanna get into the
I'm sitting
detail?
over there, right, at that desk, okay, and opportunities, they don't just come my way, right? And if they did, I wouldn't know. If someone said aluminium balconies, I'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. Move on, you know. So how did that all kind of happen, and what was the kind of story there?
Okay, so I was finishing my master's at the time. I remember precisely, it was August. I had about a week and a half left to go until the dissertation was due in. Like everybody else doing their masters, the dissertation was practically not even started. So I got a call from my dad saying, "Look, I'm at this supplier. They're looking for a distributor in Ireland." He goes, "They've got some really cool things. You should come over." And automatically I just like, no chance I'm leaving this now. Like I have to get this in, otherwise I fail. And he said, drop what you're doing and get on the next flight. So I did. I got on the next flight, went over, was fiercely impressed at what they were doing. And what they were doing at the time, were individual products that went onto a balcony, so not the whole balcony itself. So in 2016, we kind of took a chance. We tendered for the rights, and we got the rights. And within about 2 to 3 months, we secured our first €1 million contract. From there, it just kind of kept moving and moving. So every single contract was in and around the same. And there was a hell of a lot of failure within those first 2, 3 years. And it was out of pure grit and determination not to let it fail. Like when I say pure grit and determination, there was probably 9 months that I went with no salary. And there was the following 6 months, I think I took 1,300 a month from the business, and the 1,300 a month was practically to cover my car and travel expenses, just going to different meetings. But ultimately, kind of say in year 2, year 3, we started to turn a profit. And by the time we kind of got to year 5 or year 6, we had hit that proverbial ceiling that I told you about, that we just couldn't scale any further. So yeah, that's kind of the journey of how we got there.
What was your dad doing
Hmm.
before? Like again, right? And I'm just comparing it to me. You know, my dad would never call me, right, and say, look at what this balcony company is doing, right? But I'm just kind of trying to think about the background, why you were impressed with this. Like, I wouldn't be so sure I'd be able to walk into a manufacturing facility and be impressed with it,
Yeah.
especially if I mean, you were working in tech, right, in business development. Was there a background in this kind of stuff beforehand?
So I would have always had some sort of background in engineering. When I say engineering, I'm not a qualified engineer, but I would always have a keen eye into mechanics, construction products. I'd see things, I'd kind of want to understand how they worked. And one thing was abundantly clear when we saw this manufacturer was I had never seen any of these type of products in Irish construction. So in 2016, I'm going to say this quite confidently, we were probably the first company to bring in aluminium systems for balconies at that time. And then within a couple of years, we had other entrants into the market. So when I did come back from that manufacturer, I did maybe about a month of market research. And when I say market research was, online research, speaking to architects, literally driving around new developments and seeing what they were doing. And that's where I saw the gap. Everything was traditional steel. Everything was done in the old way. So I saw the gap there from a quality perspective. And then having that first break was just total validation to say we're onto something here. So yeah, it was extremely tough. Nothing was given for free. There was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went into everything. But
At the time, like if I think around that time, we were coming out certainly of the kind of really dark
yep,
days of the recession. Things were picking back up. There were certain pockets like tech was doing really well, but I suppose since probably around since that time, um, the building and everything has done very well. Did you have a view on kind of the way things were going at that point?
not that early on. So we could obviously we could see that economic activity was on an upward trend. Like you said, we were just kind of coming out of the post recession 2008 days. There was an upward trend. I think that upward trend really started to accelerate in 2016, 2017, 2018. I believe timing in life is everything. You can have the best product, the best service. You get the timing wrong, it's worth nothing. I think we've been extremely fortunate in getting the timing right in probably two major occasions. One was at the outset, and two was at the overhaul, which happened 4 years ago. So yeah, there's a bit of luck, but when I say luck, I think hard work creates luck. It doesn't just come about by pure chance.
Did you have a goal at the start? So, you said after about 5 or 6 years, you were at 3 million, and you hadn't been taking a salary in the first few years. Like you must have seen, a few years ahead, and being able to say, well, I can see it's going to be, X number of million turnover. Anything? Was there any view like that at the start, or was it just head
So
down?
at the beginning there wasn't, I'm going to say, the long-term thinking. It was, the determination to make it work, but without, I'm going to say, a long-term goal or objective. Where I'm going to say the longer-term view and the strategy really came in was 4 years ago. So it was at that point we really saw where it could go to. So we not only did we kind of put everything on the line in terms of personal capital, business capital, we really doubled down on an opportunity that I was actually quite reluctant to take at a certain point. So I remember sitting down with my dad and kind of said to him, like, we've hit the ceiling, we can't do any more. I have this idea, it's going to take everything. So we're going to have to put everything on the line. And he said to me, well, what are you worried about? And I said, well, because there's something to lose. So he said, well, you never had it to begin with. So he goes, consider it was never there and do what you need to do. So I think that removing of that fear of risk taking will really kind of gave it the best opportunity to take off. And as the business kind of grew as well, I'm sure a lot of other entrepreneurs can kind of relate to this, is as the pot size grows, your risk taking attitude that originally got you to there starts tapering off. So what kind of happened maybe a year and a half ago was dad was reaching retirement age. I wanted him to retire. He's got 6 beautiful grandkids. Wanted to spend a bit of time with my mom as well, traveling and looking after them. But the business at the same time was on this massive growth trajectory and was just very cash hungry at every single step. We were kind of rolling more and more into it. So we kind of looked at the market. I spoke to a very close friend of mine who's in the private equity space, and he said, no, brother, I'm going to do this for you. He goes, like, don't go to anyone else. I'm going to do this for you. So he went out, reached out to a couple of people, got a couple of offers, and then selected an Irish private equity. The guys are just absolutely fantastic. And that, I suppose, that particular venture with one tick did both activities. Retired dad, de-risked me, but on top of that now kind of gave us a serious ticket size to really put the turbo onto the vision. So I think I think the risk taking nature and the willingness to pursue something that you might fail at is hugely important. I've had people in the company over the last couple of years, and when mistakes are made, they kind of get themselves down. And I'm the first one to kind of go in to go, I've made more mistakes than all of you put together. So, and you have to learn from them, but you ultimately have to be willing to fail. You have to take risks when you're trying to change. I'm going to say the standard ways, or you're trying to innovate. There has to be a risk taking element.
What your dad said to you about you never had it to begin with, that's a lesson that I would say the majority of people don't learn in their lives, right? You're, I suppose, learning it at quite a young age from your dad. Has that always, have you always had that kind of relationship with your dad?
Hugely, yeah. So he would be the reason I am the person that I am today. So the hungry, the ambitious, the never sit still, always want more, always expect more. They'd definitely be characteristics that I got from him.
At age, so 23 or 24, it's a young age to be starting a business of a significant size, right? Maybe you say to me, well, we didn't get to 20 million until we made the adjustment and all the rest. Well, that's fine, but it's a young age to be doing something big and to be kind of going big and thinking big. What can you remember what your thinking was at that stage, and how it kind of came about almost?
So I think what activated the urge to do something was I was working, and I won't mention the name of the company, but I was working in a billing and control job straight out of college. Okay. And I remember going back home after I think about three or 4 months and sitting down at the dinner table with my parents and saying, I'm going to kill myself if this is my life. I just couldn't hack it. The mundane 9 to 5, the lack of excitement, the lack of adrenaline, it just wasn't for me. So I think that was the point that a lot of gears started to turn in the pursuit of something more. So that kind of triggered me to go and do a master's, and the master's was hugely valuable for going to the banks and kind of saying, look, I need to take out 150,000. And then the first question is, well, who are you? So at least, the master's was kind of a piece of paper, we'll say, that helped unlock a lot of those avenues. But yeah, I suppose the ambition I've had from a very young age was just really activated maybe when I was 22, 23.
And if this is, I don't really want to ask a specific question on it, but were you very good at sport or something? And it's sorry, the only reason I'm asking, right, is because you're still very young, right?
Yeah.
And if anyone's watching the video, they'll be able to see how young you are. And you've kind of done a lot in that time.
Mhm.
And I think that, you must have been at a kind of certain level of confidence and maturity to be able to start and run this business and to grow it as successfully as you have up to that point. And I'm just kind of wondering, can you pick anything out of your upbringing or something that you could relate that to?
There's actually a very interesting quote that our CFO has used a few times, and there's actually a lot of truth to that, which is I have ambition not always backed up by the talent, which is absolutely true. So I think ambition is far more valuable than talent. What I have seen over the last, I'm going to say, 10 to 15 years is a lot of guys that are academically very smart, ambition zero. And what that kind of dictates is, how far you get in life is directly determined by one critical factor. It's your hunger. And can you teach hunger? You can't teach hunger. You can teach academics. You can teach different things, but you can't teach hunger. You either have it or you don't have it, and it's either instilled at a young age or it's not instilled at a young age.
Did it take time to learn the business and learn the industry? Like you were saying, oh, we went and we got vans and we got hired people, and it all, as with any business startup, right? It was probably a bit of a rush, right? And felt exciting, but also probably very challenging as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
What was the first like the first few years like in that respect?
Um, you would like to think that you'd come out of college with this sense of know-how of how being self-employed works, and having knowing to do your taxes and business development and marketing and client relations and all these type of things. Sadly, that's just not the case. College doesn't prep you to be self-employed. There is no course that you can take that teaches you that. it's all done on the job. So when I say that I embrace failure, and I'm actually proud that I have made certain mistakes, because without having made them, there's no way I would know not to make them again. So the best teacher for me has been on the job training or on the job learning, as opposed to years of college and degrees.
Has it been hard, in certain cases, not to take, feedback on failure or failure personally? Because I think, some people, you don't seem like you're this way at all now, right? But some people might, um, if they fail, they might think that's down to them, and they'll never get to the next stage because of this failure that they've had. Has that ever been an issue for you?
Yeah. So I think mindset is very important. So early on, you really beat yourself up over the failure. Um, as you kind of learn from it, you start kind of not letting it get to you. So you understand why you fail. So one of the things I've done really well is reflect on different conversations, different failure points. So I remember years ago, I'd have to go into contract negotiations with some guys who were pretty damn tenured. Like, these guys would be at the edge of their field in terms of capabilities. Um, and you'd leave a meeting going, oh shit, and he got what he wanted there. But then you'd kind of analyze how they did it and how the setup. And so I think being able to reflect is hugely important, because you can make mistakes and not understand the mistake you made because you actually never reflected on what the mistake actually was or how you got to that point. So yeah, I think it's different people will take failure differently. Ultimately, I think it needs to be taken with reflection. So you fail, don't beat yourself up about it, but you sure have to go back and understand what caused the failure. If you make the same mistake again, well, then you're an idiot because you're not learning from it.
I suppose at this stage, right, you're the CEO, right, of a fairly sizable, medium-sized business. Um, but the early days, right, must have been different in terms of where you were putting your attention, more maybe management versus kind of leadership, or whatever way you want to put it. What was that like in the first few years?
Difficulty letting go of every single part was, I think every business owner will relate to that. There's been times that I've kind of taken advice from people that have been in the same position, and I used to have this mentality of, only when the business can afford it, we will bring on X. That has now totally changed. The business might not afford it, but we're going to go hire them anyway, and we're going to go and create the conditions for the business to afford them. So, to give you an example, maybe about 3 years ago, I was at that juncture where I was looking after everything commercially, and the commercial was the most sensitive part. It's like, I have to do all the valuations, all the assessments, all the tendering. I had to keep control of that. And then I got this piece of advice and said, okay, well, actually, hang on, let's just go and hire a QS. Let's go hire two QSs. Let's go hire three QSs. Suddenly, then we were able to do a lot more. I wasn't in control of every element, but I was in a supervisory role. So it's very difficult when you're ingrained in the process to start releasing, but unless you start releasing and trusting, it's impossible for you to grow that business, because
Who gave you that advice?
there was a guy that I was working with at the time. There's actually two pieces of great advice that I got over the years. One of them was Michael Stanley and Karen Holmes, and himself and Jude Byrne tapped me on the shoulder, and then they said, "Oltian, we don't want to see you here. You're the business owner. Get out of here." So that was number one. And then there was, I can't remember the gentleman's name now, but it was a while ago. And he said, hire, and then figure it out. That was kind of what led to the change of thinking. So there's been guys over the years that I'd look up to, that I've mentored, and kind of, given their own advice and what they see. And sometimes it's difficult to take that advice because it goes against everything that you think is right. But I think you have to learn from other people.
Did it take time to settle? Say, like, getting that advice, right, from Michael Stanley. Was it like, well, what's he talking about? Of course, I'm the business owner. Of course, I'm going to be here, right? Or was it like, oh, there's a customer telling me something here? What way did it kind of sit with you?
So at the very beginning during that project, I was on site working with the guys. Okay, so the context of it was they saw me working on site with the guys for a good few months, and it was at a certain point that he said, "Listen, you need to hire people to do this because you're running the business. You can't run the business and do this." That was the concept behind it. Now at the time, if Michael only knew at the time how tight things were. Um, but yeah, I suppose we did take that advice and we did start hiring more people. And what kind of came as a consequence of that is, say, it increased the burden for 3 months in terms of cash flow, but because of that 3 months that I wasn't micromanaging everything, it allowed me to now actually go and hunt new business, which generated more cash flow. So the importance of what he said there is absolutely true. You can't do everything. You can't be everywhere. Hire the right people for the right positions at the right time. But then ultimately that should free you up to do the important things, which is, strategize, grow, implement new processes.
Do you find yourself ever falling back into old ways of thinking? So you're saying, okay, let's just hire ahead of time, right? Let's just hire it, and it'll work itself out, in terms of, because we'll have the extra capacity. But do you ever find yourself, oh, I just don't know if I want to make that investment right now, or has that completely changed?
I think what's kind of changed over the last couple of years is that we see the vision, we have the vision for where the business is going over the next couple of years. We understand what we need to do. It's about not hiring way too early, but we know we're going to hire anyway. So we have this motto in our business that we want 75%, 70, everybody working at 75%. We want 25% headroom, and the 25% headroom, we want basically time to think, time to innovate, collaborate, see where the problems are so that we can go and address them. Because if everybody's at 100% capacity, nobody has time to think about anything else. So you're always better to overhire than to underhire, because underhiring creates problems. Underhiring creates problems for your customers. Overhiring creates a temporary cash pinch. But as long as you can weather the cash pinch, it's generally not a bad idea.
So we talked about just some of those challenges, right, in the kind of early days, but the decision to kind of change things up and to scale ultimately was huge, right? Um, did that purely come about from pain, or were there other things involved?
Pure pain, yeah. So necessity is the mother of all innovation. So because we'd kind of hit the ceiling, because we'd kind of reached a max of capacity as a business, there was nothing more that we could do without going, I'm going to say, interstellar towards the wrong path. So we could have just said, let's just throw more money at this and hire more people. But ultimately, now you needed more managers, more site managers, more vans, and you were far more vulnerable to any, I'm going to say, project delays, because you're carrying the cost of all these people. So the um, things on site not working out the way we wanted to. So I'd explain this to my dad at the times that we make money on one project, we lose it on the next. We make money on one project and then we might lose it on the next. We can't control the common denominator, which is the site. The site is the problem. Therefore, the solution is the offsite. And what we could spot at the time was there was a natural transition from site to offsite. So we had seen, for example, pods companies going, we'd seen modular companies kind of setting up in an offsite scenario. So we saw the trend and then we started to investigate and we're, okay, this is where the future is going. Builders prefer it, architects love it from a quality perspective. So there's huge benefits. So when we spotted the opportunity, we really went all in. I think we wrote over a course of about a year and a half. We probably wrote about 2 to 2.5 million of a ticket size between new product R&D, testing, designers, new factory, new machines, all of this type of stuff that we had to implement.
And is it simply that on site, it's an environment that you don't really control and there's so much else going on? And if you can actually build them off site, there's just more time and more flexibility for yourself to be able to build it and then bring it on site.
You're in control of your own destiny. So once the customer gives you sign off, so like I'll give you kind of an example now. We've got at any given point in a year, we probably have somewhere between 12 to 15 projects on the go within that year. They're usually sizable contracts. But we'll bring all of these projects through the design and approval process. And once they're approved, we'll order all the material that's required. When it lands, it's up to us to ensure that it gets manufactured on time. Sometimes it may be made 3 months, 4 months in advance, but we can make them at our own leisure. If we need overtime, we can control that. We're not dependent on the site. We don't need access, don't need cranes, don't need any of these things that are site items. So we're in control of our own destiny. And because we're in control of our own destiny, we can control how much we output every single week. So offsite is by far the future. And if we've any hope of hitting any housing targets, there needs to be even a more accelerated adoption of offsite.
From 3 to 20 million. So I take it kind of from 0 to 3 million, and plateauing was quite difficult. Did it feel easier from 3 to 20? Which sounds crazy because it's a much larger multiple. But did it feel easier?
It felt different. So it felt like we could control a few more things. It obviously took a few of our clients taking a bit of a chance on us as a business, because everything that we had done had no bearing in everything that we had done previous to that. So we were a totally new business. Like, even though we've been around since 2016, 4 years ago, we were a brand new business. So we had a couple of really good loyal customers that really took a punt on us, that really alleviated, I'm going to say, the business development and the new product to market difficulties or challenges.
But is the product not, and sorry, again, I just know nothing about it, but is the product for them not roughly the same? It's like, look, we're just going to come on site with the whole thing built and it's actually easier for you. Was it not like that, or was it more
It
like, oh,
is. It just goes back to I'm trying to get to convince you that this is a better way, but you have not done it before. So you're having to rely on everything that I tell you. And there was a lot of customers in this space that, until they did it the first time, were uneasy because they didn't understand it. Once they did it the first time, there was no going back to the way they did it previously. So it's that initial jumping off the cliff moment for them, that there was a lot of reassurance, a lot of confidence building. So we had Cairn Homes, for example. We had the guys out to our factory a few times that were really liked the product, really impressed. But again, I suppose what they kind of kept coming back to is, we haven't proven you on our sites. Like, we haven't gone through this on our sites. So I said, okay, well, let's distill this down into specific areas. So we need to go through design, we need to go through engineering, and we need to go through manufacturing, and then ultimately go through, the site installation. And he said, yeah, and until you can validate every one of those points to us, he goes, we can't give you any more work. So I was like, okay. So we had one project with 230 balconies. We designed them in I think about 10 days. We had all the information over to them in 10 days. We manufactured them in 4 weeks. So we had basically stopped after that manufacturing phase and had to wait for the site to catch up. So we were sitting on 230 balconies for about a year.
where
And then the site came, and then we started install, and the install went exceptionally well. As a consequence of doing that, I'm going to say, onboarding journey with them the first time, we're now on 4 sites with Cairn Homes. And it's the same with all the other customers. So you do the one project, once you validate the one, and then it really starts opening up, because now they're comfortable around your technical capabilities, your manufacturing capabilities, your installation, and it's about giving them comfort around those areas.
So it didn't, I suppose you said it felt different rather than easier. But was it not easier, right? And what was kind of difficult about that part?
Like, generally speaking, business at the beginning versus business later on, it does get easier, because it's very hard to break into a market originally, like at the very outset. The challenges change then later on. So they kind of changed around, say, maintaining your market position, pushing the boundaries in terms of innovation, but you're no longer a new entrant. So they kind of change from, say, cash flow to market positioning and strategy, and client retention and all those good things. So they're just different types of stresses, if that makes sense.
You mentioned earlier on that you've a CFO, right? And I think in order to take on a private equity investment, you have to, it's not just the revenue, right? You have to have certain things in place. The company has to operating in a certain way. And as part of that, there's kind of leadership. It's not just, Oltian's there doing it all himself and everything. Was that intentional early on to put senior leaders in place in the business?
Yeah, so we've been kind of looking at that for, I'm going to say, 2 years. And there's two guys, Irvin and Sean. Like those guys have stuck with me through thick and thin. And as the company has grown, we've also put in place other people in the commercial role. Ross and Morris. Morris was the CFO. We were kind of introduced during the Aerospace transaction. And we're definitely yin and yang, like we buzz. We're totally different skill sets, but we absolutely buzz off each other. And a very good expression that Morris has is, we're here to have fun, which is a different, I suppose, different way of viewing it. Yes, business is stressful, but you have to have fun. You have to enjoy what you do.
Has that been good for you?
Massively, oh, hugely so. It's having somebody in your corner with a totally different set of skill sets that complements and really unlocks me to focus on what I'm good at. I'm not an accountant.
And fun specifically, I mean, has that been do things feel lighter? And it's a weird thing for an accountant to
Yeah.
say, to be honest, right? I'm an accountant. I don't get a lot of that from my fellow accountants. Has it introduced a kind of a lighter atmosphere or anything like that?
It does, yeah. I mean, look, when we're serious, but ultimately, like we have a bit of fun as well. And I think how we have fun is we've created a really good atmosphere within our team. So the team is, generally speaking, they're very young, very ambitious, very hungry. We all have a bit of a laugh, but ultimately we drive each other. So we hold each other accountable while we're having a laugh. So it means, from a culture perspective, and for years I didn't truly value culture as much as I have in the last couple of years. And it's not the fluffy stuff. It's not the, oh, well, we're bringing cake on a Friday and look at us, we're all great. What I mean by culture is actually really good, solid relationships within the team. We spend more time with each other than we do with our own families. So getting on with those people, having a great time with those people, and ultimately understanding that when one of them uh, is drowning in workload, that the rest all gather around to kind of get them out. So I think really for us, it's that bonding of the tight knit team that we have.
Are you intentional about that? Now, does it all kind of happen when you hire the person? I like this person, and you kind of continue to like them, or what way do you think about that?
So I've had over the years different types of hiring experiences. Ultimately, the CV to me now isn't worth anything. Unless we're looking at a technical role, like an engineering role, for example, or a BIM modeler or Revit modeler or something like that. Generally speaking, I hire from the gut. So it's the initial engagement, it's the conversation, it's the second round. Really, what I'm looking for is that hunger and that ambition. If I can spot that, I will go against what the CV is telling me and hire that person. And I have done this with great success over the last couple of years. Because what I said to you earlier is you can't teach that, but I can teach the other. So if it's managerial skills, or if it's contractual skills, or if it's whatever, we can actually teach a good bit of that. But I can't motivate you to come in here at 7 a.m. I can't motivate you to dig in when times get tough. If you want a 9 to 5, it's not for you. So that's why the hunger is really important to me, because as a business, we're accelerating at breakneck speed across so many different areas. Like I've only kind of touched on a few of them, which is the existing business or the organic business, the new site that we're developing at the moment, the additional site that we've just acquired as well.
How big do you think this business could be and will be?
Within a very short space of time, between organically and inorganically, we will exceed 50 million turnover. I'm going to say within about 16 to 18 months. So we're active on the acquisition front at the moment, and once we kind of unlock the UK opportunity, which we should be very, very soon, and we acquire certain portions of the supply chain, we should be 50 million plus. Absolutely.
Talk to me about acquiring certain portions of the supply chain. So, what does that look like? Who's kind of in the supply chain, and what and why? Why would you do that?
The main input to our product is aluminium, but we also have steel elements that go into certain bracketry and connections and stuff like that. Um, we would be quite different to most of our competitors. So most of our competitors want to pull back from the supply chain. They don't want to own manufacturing. They want to basically become a project management and design house, and they subcontract manufacturing. We believe that's the wrong route to market, and the reason for that is because you lose control every single time you pull yourself back from a critical element. You lose control over the quality, over the lead times, and everything else. We're actually going the exact opposite direction. So we own manufacturing. We're going further into the supply chain by acquiring steel fabricators, by acquiring, complementary services that go into our end product. And ultimately, this is for value creation, margin expansion, consolidation of that piece. But we own the entire supply chain. So once we can get to that position, lead times are phenomenal. Cost is exceptional. The offering to a client is no longer going to be about balconies, but it's going to be about additional elements that go on to the development as well. So that creates a huge amount of value for them by having one phone call that does everything. So for us as a business, that's what really we've set ourselves up to be. Like, I go to clients and say, "You have my number, ring me. Don't ring anybody else, ring me, and I will sort it out for you." And then you kind of look at what our competitors do. It's, "Don't ring me, ring the installer. Don't ring the installer, ring the manufacturer. And then if they can't help you, come back to me." Now, if you're a client, imagine you just bought a car, the car's not working, and they tell you, "Well, go and ring, Mercedes Benz in Munich." Of course, this is madness. Like, I bought the car from you. Why am I ringing them? So we've set up everything in our business to be service driven. So we might not always be the cheapest, but we will not be outdone on service.
What way are these decisions made in the company? And just, I have this feeling, right, that you're sort of in meetings and you're saying, "We're doing this, this, and this." And there's a few people in the room going, I don't know about that. And they're a little bit hesitant, or let's say just a little bit more hesitant than you would be.
Yeah.
Am I right in that?
So the guys and gals that are in our, I'm going to say, senior management team, they fully trust in my ability to make the right decisions. I haven't let them down yet, and I hope not to let them down. But ultimately, everything is based on logic. So it's not a mad idea that I've just picked up in the morning, but it all has a purpose. So the purpose is to either address a constraint, or to address a problem they're having, or to address a manufacturing, or whatever the case is. Every single instruction that we talk about, it's to address a specific pain point. So I'm not ripping up the whole playbook for no reason.
Tell me a little bit just about kind of the way you are at the moment, right? So if we've talked about the kind of early days and the kind of challenges, and the challenges from, let's say, 3 to 20. Right now, you've taken on private equity. You're still very ambitious. You're a finalist in the EY group this year. So things are kind of going well, and they look like, maybe from the outside looking in, that things have kind of sped up, and that you may have kind of um maybe figured out something from a mindset point of view along the way. Um, is that true, or is it just you've always kind of just had one speed?
But I tell you one thing which was very grounding was being in Toronto. So being with 150 plus between the finalists and the alumni, it was a gathering of very highly motivated, highly successful, very ambitious people. And what I previously thought was, yeah, bloody hell, we've done pretty good to get to here. When you surround yourself with people like that for a week, you go, "Hang on a second, this is not good enough. We need to get to there." So, we had a private ceremony, essentially, with Mark Carney, the PM of Canada. Um, and one of the trips that we took was to Niagara Falls. So I met with Dennis O'Brien. Actually, I met with him again a few days ago. I met with Dennis O'Brien. We were sitting on a bus, and And Dennis was kind of talking to me about the business, the investment strategy. And he goes, what do you want to achieve? And I said, look, ultimately, I have de-risked a portion of my capital, but I said, I want to make money for the investors. I want this to be worthwhile for the senior management team that have helped build it. So I said, I want to return now to others. And he said, well, you can either grow the EBITDA or grow the multiple. So at the time, I never heard the concept of grow the multiple. Monday morning, I arrived back, and I remember ringing Thomas in Earspeg, and I said, by the way, I've got a totally different strategy of what we're going to do. And Thomas thought I was stone mad. He was like, what the hell are you doing? We already have the strategy. I said, Thomas, wait till you hear me out. So we went into meet Deloitte on the Wednesday, and we're kind of pitching our different kind of cases, and Aerospace had their strategy, and this, we're going to buy 6-7 companies, we're going to consolidate, we're going to do all this. And then Thomas goes to me, goes, well, do you want to tell the lads what you want to do? And I said, well, we're going to buy 2 companies, and we're going to overhaul manufacturing, and we're going to reinforce our moat, increase the barriers to entry, make us absolutely bulletproof for the next 10 years. And when I laid out that strategy, the 2 guys perked up. So I said, perfect, we're all in agreement. This is what we're going to do. So I suppose what reason why I'm kind of telling you that is all of that stemmed from having surrounding yourself with that type of thinking, because up to a certain point you think that everything that I'm doing here is correct, or I'm reaching the right target, and then you surround yourself with those people and they're kind of going, the target's over here, you're doing great, but the target's over here.
What about, so that just multiple, right? Talk
Yeah,
to
yeah.
me about growing the multiple. Okay, so before, I mean, let's say you acquire a few companies, you're gonna get a bigger multiple anyway, right? Just from doing that, just from being
Yep.
larger. Um, what are the things kind of that you're doing from a strategic point of view that kind of help you grow that multiple and protect it maybe even more?
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're reinventing an industry in terms of manufacturing at the moment. So while we have done quite a lot in, I'm going to say, getting the business to where it is now in terms of cost point, manufacturing process, lead time, we are absolutely, as we are leading in that space at the moment, and nobody else can even compete. We're now pushing that way beyond what anybody will be able to compete with from a manufacturing perspective. So we're transforming the company from an offsite manufacturer to an advanced manufacturer, and creating agentic AI into the different management functions by creating our own CRM, ERP, MRP system that manages every single part of the business, from initial customer engagement to installation on site, and having traceability across all that. So all of that is driving the multiple, because it basically says, this is the IP in the business is not just in our manufacturing capacity here, but you could essentially take this box and put it in North America, and put it in Scandinavia, and put it in any other industry or any other geography, and it will succeed. And it's impenetrable in the sense of, the higher the unit, the higher the units that we have on order, the lower the cost point becomes. The lower the cost point becomes, drives further units. So it's a self-feeding loop from that perspective.
When you're surrounded by the other finalists, over the years from the EY group and similar people, do you see, is there one thing that you see a similarity between everyone?
I'd say ambition. Ambition is definitely there. There's definitely an urge or desire for every one of them to give back. One thing that surprised me quite a lot was the collaboration between everybody. So nobody holds things to their chest. It's all, how can I help, and how can I put you in touch with them? And everybody wanted to give back, and it was this kind of the sense that everybody had achieved it from a personal perspective, what they wanted to achieve, and really a lot of them wanted to give back to younger entrepreneurs, or people coming up.
We talked about it feeling differently from 0 to 3 and from 3 to 20. Does it feel different now that you've de-risked or essentially just made some money for yourself? Does it feel different or easier?
Not at all. So I suppose from my own, sorry, it does from one perspective, because we've de-risked. So And I suppose I made no secret of this during the transaction, and I had said to Thomas, I was like, I feel myself looking over my shoulder because the pot is now much larger, and now the family's dependent on it, and now, you know, the sisters, the wife, the kids, all of these things are kind of dependent on this success. So that risk-taking nature that got it to here suddenly now is gone. So the de-risking, what it essentially allowed me to do is to go, I've nothing to lose anymore. Does that make sense? And
Well,
now,
it does. I suppose what my question would be is that having lost that someone on your shoulder, right, or having lost that kind of urgency, or I have to make this work. Has that? I'm going to make an observation. It doesn't seem to me that has changed your drive in any way, and I wonder, have you learned anything from that?
it hasn't changed my drive. It's just it's brought back my risk taking nature. So now for me it's more, like I said, I want everybody to do well out of this. I want the people that helped me build it to do well out of this as well. We changed a significant pain point in the industry. A lot of developers benefited from that. A lot of clients benefited from that. You as a potential homeowner benefit from that in terms of quality and longevity of a product. I enjoy the journey. The journey is really what excites, like the waking up in the morning and, having so many things to do, and having real hard goals to accomplish.
Oltian Dervishi, it's been a pleasure having
Has it
you in
been an
today.
hour?
Thank you. I actually, I don't know, it's gone so quickly, right? But I can tell it probably has been roughly about an hour, But did it go quickly?
No, it did, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, listen, it's been a pleasure. I've
Fantastic.
enjoyed it. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you
No, I
want to
think
talk about?
That's it. That's brilliant.
Excellent. Well,
Amazing.
listen, thanks for
Thank
coming
you
in.
very
We'll
much.
talk soon.
Appreciate it. Huh? Fantastic.